there, they really want to get the infrastructure back to its working position. So governance is equal to capital expenditure. If there's poor governance, if there is if the roles are not clearly identified, who is going to do what, who is going to take care of the infrastructure, that is what we have seen. Government infrastructure after 3 to 5 years at the local level, it just collapses because there is nobody to take care of it, to take ownership of it. So asset responsibility should be published. Who is going to do what? Who is responsible for it? Operations and maintenance should be ring-fenced in the cost of the project. Without operation and maintenance, you cannot, it will be just one-off intervention. You build something and then it's lost. But if the community mechanism is there for oversight, they will ensure that it's built back again. It recovers soon. So this is a very key thing, and this is what we do. Our infrastructure in 2025 floods, and whether it was we did it with KFW last year, the water level came up to 14 feet, and that flood protection wall was 15 feet high. It was there. It protected the communities. The structure stayed there. And there was another infrastructure project, flood protection wall, Gabin structure we did in Deamere. This was a tank that we did with KFW in Deamere. When we did we constructed it, I think 8 or 10 years back. The floods came, it stayed there, it protected the community. Because community oversight is there. People look after it, they take care of it. If there is, when there are stress signals that there's something that has to be repaired, community at once acts. So this is a very important thing. Capital expenditure is equal to governance. Governance should be very strong when it comes to longevity of local infrastructure.
Yeah, thank you. Just I want to share my thoughts and ideas. Like governance, as Imran has rightly mentioned, governance, policy implementation, its execution, they are very important subjects. And we hope, the donors always hope, like we trust the government, and we hope what type of intervention or activity the donor is being doing is for the community and from the community as well. For example, as we are working in the forest, as KFW has also been working in these particular areas recently, I have learned these things. Like, for example, for the forest, we have the land, like the state land and the community owned land. So for the community owned land, like then there are VDCs, village development communities, and then there are being watchers. So what we are doing is, for our project intervention, we are supporting them. We are hiring those watchers through the forest department, so they have the ownership of the project in those particular areas. For example, we are watering activity and different types of things. So it's for 3 years. We have a formal agreement with the local community and their representatives. Afterwards, we had a meeting with Secretary Forest. So I discussed with them as well, like for sustainability of the project, we want a long-term agreement from the government department with the community. It will be 3 + 7 years. Like if the project is being finished, government will take the ownership and the sustainability will be done. So the department is now developing a sustainability management plan for that, so that those activity or type of activity which is being introduced in the area, so its ultimate benefits could be gained. As we know, like if we are doing plantation activity, it's a bit slow process, it takes time. And also we are having the nursery raising in different type of the project area and its operation and maintenance sector. So to make it more viable, so this approach has been adopted. Number one. Other is that during the COP, we came to know, like the world is, or the donor is also being interested more towards the nature-based solutions as well, because on the infrastructure side is being developed, but still we are having the impacts of the floods, which is being with the passage of time, it's been increasing. So that's why for the Green Climate Fund and Recharge Pakistan, we are having these nature-based solution activities, that the industrialization of these kind of things, we were also having these type of intervention. But afterwards, we are seeing now it's been after every year, as you rightly mentioned, 1 year we are waiting for the next year, and its impacts are being even worse. So what I mean to say is, with the approach now we are adopting is like to work with the nature, to channelize the thing with different green infrastructure, with deforestation, involving the community, so that these people who are working on the tertiary level or the downstream, they are being protected, or the velocity is being reduced with the recharge well or the piezometer, as I rightly mentioned, or different type of things, which will ultimately, the water table will be increased in certain areas. Like if it's brackish water, it will be sweet water, and the livelihood of the people who with the grazing animals and different type of thing, with the co-benefits forwards and backward linkages, they will have an impact. So with this approach, the sustainability will come. The policy with the department which we are interacting, it will be more viable, and even the department will have a quite good handy hand to implement those activities. Like we rightly mentioned, like it should be in the ADPC, the government department agreed to us based on the approach we are been suggesting and adopting for the project. So I think the governance, if it is being facilitated in the initial stage of the project, like if we do these type of activities, money is there, resources are there. So afterwards, what shall we do, like so that the government can sustain after the project? So with this concept, we have been working with the secretariat level, and they are it's moving in the right direction. And we also hope, like after the 5-6 years project, we will be in a phase like the government will have a sustainable sustainability of the project which is being executed for them.
Yes, Asna. Yeah, as it was mentioned that there should be on the impacts of the infrastructure, as we have mentioned, and as Ms. Usma mentioned, that there should be the community aspect and the livelihood aspect should be considered there as well. We would like to share our experience with the HRE2 project which we are doing with Water and Power Department. It was 12.5 million euro project, and out of it 20% was dedicated for community empowerment, but basically overall sustainability. So what we did there was that using the same infrastructure of the hydropower project, we are doing plantation in barren land. And the idea behind that is that these plantations will serve, first of all, as a carbon sink in the area, improve the overall biodiversity, and lastly, improve the livelihood of the local community. So how we are actually doing is that of these plantation, 30% will be dedicated for the biodiversity component, and remaining 30 will be exclusively given in the ownership of the local women community for empowerment of local women. And lastly, the remaining 40% will be equally distributed among the community. And on top of it, there are value chains being developed, which will be, for example, nursery for plantation in this area, which is again being given ownership to the local community, especially women are preferred there. So overall, this is something that we are doing for the sustainability of the project. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, please.
Well, regarding the community ownership, I think it's very true. People living near forests have a tendency to cut down trees, and people who don't have forest nearby, they have a tendency to plant trees. So that is a reality. In Diamar district, I have served in all of the regions, all of the districts of Gilgit-Baltistan. I have the honor. So in Diamar and Astor district, we have forests, and there people are cutting forests. So they have a tendency to cut the forest and they never plant trees. This is true. And the remaining 10 districts we have from Baltistan, we don't have forests, natural forests, and everybody is crazily planting trees. Everybody is crazy planting trees. I belong to Gilgit, and now is the planting season, and everybody you will see in Gilgit and every district will be running after trees, and just getting hold of any trees from the market and everything. So afforestation, so there should be strict laws for people who are cutting down trees, there should be a strict laws, number one. And of course, community participation is important, but where there are tendency to plant trees, those people should be encouraged with the communities, like providing solar pumps and electric pumps where there's electricity available. So, and also making these plants available. That is more than enough. You don't have to do anything. You just have to help people and communities identify small scale solutions, not big infrastructure. Regarding green infrastructure, your good self was talking about, that is and the global warming and climate change that cannot be addressed with I don't think so. It's a too huge a problem to be solved, like small solutions. I don't think so. In my humble opinion, it's energy efficiency and conservation. Intelligent use, that is a reality, using LED lights, using energy efficient appliances, energy management. So engaging with the community awareness is number one. So energy efficiency and renewables, solar, wind, and hydro. So we need to have a hybrid system, solar, wind, and hydro. And I think the solar seems to be the most feasible in the current scenario, since you don't need infrastructure. Rooftop solar is going to be the key in future. I believe solar is going to be the key. And for that, utility scale solars are also very good. But I think this, and also like great for green infrastructure, electrification of industry, like making cement and steel from renewable sources of energy, just one, and EVs and mass transit and green hydrogen. I think these holistically we'll have to see this. Thank you.
I just wanted to add to the overall conversation only one point that comes to my mind is the engaging at the same time private sector as well, because there is not enough public money or development funds, even climate funds. Accessing climate funds is also not an easy way, and it takes time. So not only having ownership of the local communities, creating awareness that how they have to protect their forests and not cut the trees. Other than that, engaging private sector, doing small pilots through various challenge or innovation funds that the development partners brings in. We need to promote private sector, some sort of incentivization or policies or business case that the private sector feels that there is a need for them to invest in adaptation and resilience as well, because that is the key in terms of unlocking long-term investments for such infrastructure, given the lack of financing available for the developing and especially climate vulnerable countries. So that's I wanted to add.
Thank you very much. I think you pointed out another strategy that I was already thinking of and putting it on the table. But I'll also just quickly respond to what our colleague said, is that, and especially it's in terms of the argument that we mentioned earlier, that how infrastructure and the way it's designed and built can contribute to disasters, not just events, but overall climate change in that regard. You might recall in 2010-11, the flooding was significant. It was called on historic proportions in terms of its spread. And the infrastructure back then that was built contributed to people's miseries and problems. In Sindh, the low-lying area, it caused to water deluge, which resulted in waterborne diseases. And that was realized recently during World Bank study that although the purpose was to provide relief to people, to improve infrastructure, which can enhance people's mobility and can give them access to better public services, but the impact was adverse. And now government, whether if you look at along the highways and motorways, they are retrofitting infrastructure to give water some way to pass on to another area, rather than these infrastructure damming water and causing deluge. Thought that it's better they invest in that. Another important aspect is that, which you already mentioned, is that solar power, renewable resources, which individual on household level investment is taking place in that, but a more clear policy direction in that regard is useful. Similarly, incentivizing that sector is critically important, just as electric vehicles and other models that you mentioned. But coming to also to the other strategy, because the government or policy side is too big to cover in one session or even by any organization, it requires a government-wide, a government level push, support, and engagement. Because as I said, the way it's currently set up, it's working in silos, sometimes in watertight compartments, which doesn't allow much engagement or collaboration, coordination between different institutions. The other one is the private sector engagement. And when it comes to cutting edge technology, to innovation, to research, I think that's the space where the private sector can play an important role. I'll give you two points here. One is because when it comes to climate change, readiness, preparedness, I would say insurance plays a pivotal role here, which gives you some level of guarantee that you can recover what you lost. But can insurance help us with mitigating challenges or problems that we are causing to the climate or to environment, which especially is infrastructure you can safeguard, but with insurance, can we safeguard that? Another important area which can also help us with that is the carbon offsets. Companies, the private sector, can play a critical role again here. And I was reading Bill Gates' book, How Do We Address Climate Disaster? And in that, he said that over the past many years, he and his family invested either 1 trillion or 1 billion US in carbon offsets by providing in different areas. One is just to invest in a company, a non-government organization which was doing research and innovative technologies which can reduce the carbon footprint. Another one in what you said in renewable energy for subsidized household construction. So these are the areas which I can think of when it comes to the private sector. But also we do not or shouldn't forget that the private sector is sometimes the key driver for infrastructure development. So the carbon footprint is bigger there because for them, it's a source of money. How do we engage them? How better can the government, again, provide a policy setting where they can deliver more responsibly and do justice also to climate? Over to you.
I was just thinking, you mentioned insurance. We know that livestock and crop insurance could protect farmers from extreme climate events, but how could farmers afford that? We have not yet made it affordable for the very poor. It's an option. Even PPF has piloted this. But now PPF sister company PMIC is offering micro crop insurance, but this is not practiced. This is not availed. This facility is not availed at the mass level. So we have to come up with I don't know, some other solutions that it becomes affordable, or maybe what about farmers? They could practice climate smart agriculture, so that they move along with climate change, plant in advance, have drought resilient seeds. Support could be extended to them to afford drought resilient seeds, so that it acts as an offset to insurance, as an alternative to insurance. But I also wanted to add to her point, because a precursor to private investment is research. Where is our academia? How about we support university, the final graduate students, to design the projects and come up with new ideas, and then have a moot, a business moot, where investors could come, bankers could come, and they could help pilot those interventions and scale it up. And maybe the NGO sector could scale it up. Because Gates Foundation, that's what they used to do. Beijing Toilet Festival or Delhi Toilet Festival, they actually supported academia to come up with toilet solutions. So we don't do that. In Pakistan, we don't do that. Are we supporting our academia design, come up, the students come up with such solutions, with climate adaptation solutions, and then private sector would invest, because private sector has the money to finance innovations, but there should be ideas. We don't have that. And insurance, it's not, we can see it's not working, but we have to come up with alternatives, some other ways for climate adaptation as well.
Yeah, so that's useful. And you have been talking about, heard about community engagement, community-based activities. And I think when it comes to the private sector, and I would say people's engagement, the ecosystem services can play an important or critical role in this space. Because if we steer them in a direction where they say that if they preserve, let's say, for example, forests or tree cover, so we come up, the government or the private sector, with a plan where they can monetize the contribution in terms of carbon offsets. Because, and that's what I'm saying, companies can play an important role here if they can come up with a plan, a mechanism, a model in which they can say, okay, this is a community which is protecting a forest on this and this acre of acreage. What's its contribution to that? So if they know a sustainable revenue source is developed based on that, they will go to any extent to own and protect that forest. And with that could come biodiversity. And then that's what I'm saying, is that another aspect to it is that where it comes, the private sector engagement is non-timber forest products. They are also critical. And for communities living in forests or around forests, for them, it's critical. So if there are value chains developed in a manner in where the private sector can provide them incentives and they can bring more and more production, give them revenue, as again, they will go to any extent to protect those natural resources, which are renewable. As I said, forest is not renewable, can't be renewed quickly, but non-timber forest products are renewable. They are regenerative. With the little support, they can do it. So I would say the market, the private sector can play a critical role here. But similarly also, the government can provide a conducive environment where they can channel the resources, whether it's the private sector, the public sector, or people, in a direction where they can complement each other and come up with something that is very useful.
You're talking about government as well, but we have to keep in mind it's the local administration where the capacity is weak, extremely weak. So we need to create an ecosystem of support. How? We need to build their capacities, which, you know, in that those technical terms, the grand bargain, where Pakistan has, this is an international covenant that you have to build the capacity at the local level. And this includes capacity of the government. So our programs, they are actually addressing the capacity gap of the local government, because they are the people who will be providing an ecosystem of support. Community on its own cannot really do something, but support has to come from the local government. A recent program that PPF is implementing is restoring social services and climate resilience in 19 districts of Pakistan, 61 flood-affected union councils post-flood 2022. So we are actually building capacity of the local government. This is something that we have never done before, and we are doing it now. And I was just thinking this needs to be scaled up, because local administration is very fragile. Their awareness has to be built, their capacity has to be built, and they have to be networked with each other so that they could support all these interventions. Even if the private sector is there, they need to know about it, that private sector, what role private sector will be playing, and how the local government administration can actually support it.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, I can just share a positive or a good example based on market linkages or the private sector. WWF has one project with Better Cotton. It's been in mostly in Punjab. It's on cotton. So initially it was been as a pilot project. It was being initiated in Punjab region and in Balochistan as well. It was a pilot project, but the project went so successful that later the Sub-Sitara company, they had a collaboration with the farmers. So now it's on a huge land, cotton is being produced, and these companies are being engaged, and they are just procuring or purchasing cotton from those people as well. So you see, it was just initiated on few acres of land, then it went out really successful. So the point is, whatever project program is being planned, it should be designed with the concept, as I mentioned, the sustainability and the utmost beneficiary, which are the community. So if the activity is being finished, so those people multiply it and it's replicated again further. So the benefits is being sustained. So just it has been discussed. So I just wanted to share my knowledge and information that it was being just initiated on few acres, and now it's in Punjab and Balochistan, and these companies have been engaged. So it's been really successful.
Yeah, sure, that's important. And you mentioned one aspect, sustainability. And with sustainability also came one thing to my mind, which is adaptation. And as we are discussing infrastructure, especially climate integrated one, can infrastructure be adapted to climate change risks? Any ideas, any suggestions, any recommendation?
Just before that, our honorable lady, she was talking about capacity of local administration. So before capacity, I would say credibility is also an issue. So really, I have been through many things, serving government departments. So credibility is number one. People should trust the person who is talking on the stage. So unless they say something and made fun of on the social media, this is very common. So trust and credibility is number one. Number one is because people don't think with their brains, they think with their hearts now, emotions, you have to take care of people's emotions. So credibility, development of credibility is very important. Thank you.
I would like to add a couple of points what my colleague has said. Well, I think in Pakistan, as we know, most of the projects are designed when they say how much kickbacks one is keeping. So credibility without strengthening oversight or institutions which control corruption, as recently IMF pointed out, that no project can be sustainable in Pakistan. So strengthening institutions is very important. As you have mentioned that most of the departments are working in solo. Why they are working in solo? I mean, why they are not transparent? The reason is obvious, that there is a fishy in this project. So we need to strengthen, number one, those institutions, those have a accountability mechanism, strong accountability mechanism. And second, we need to strengthen our local government system. Without strengthening local government system, we cannot ensure sustainability of the project, like water projects especially. Pakistan, one of the biggest challenge at the moment facing is water, because our water resources are depleting fast, and we are at most at war with India at water issues. So without strengthening local government, we cannot ensure sustainability of the water conservation at different level. Number two, each area ecosystem is different than other areas. For example, Daman micro ecosystem is different than Balochistan. So we need to have a tailor-made approach instead of uniform approach for the for different projects. So therefore, as you have been stressing and again and again, local level adaptation and traditional knowledge, we need to collect these traditional knowledge and replicate it in different projects.
So, your question is on infrastructure. Can it be adapted? Yes, we retrofit it. We rehabilitate it. We rehabilitate it to protect the communities, to adapt to climate change. For example, we are doing health and education institutes. We are retrofitting them so that they become resilient to flood. They become resilient to heat waves. We are rehabilitating our structures, raising water supply scheme, protecting them with flood protection walls. One thing that we should keep in mind that resilience metrics should measure hours of continuity of the service. Whether it's health center, it's a bridge, road, hours of continuity of service. So, so we cannot really look at one infrastructure in isolation. It should be approached from lifeline thinking. For example, if a bridge collapses, maybe because of that, we cannot access health services. Are there any alternative routes for that health service? So everything has to be taken in a holistic manner so that the service could keep continuing its service. Can keep continuing providing its service, and it's safe and exclusive. People from vulnerable communities, they could also access it. So in order for infrastructure to adapt, yes, we rehabilitate it, we retrofit it, and then we make sure that all services, lifeline services are accessible. They are accessible even during disaster, even during climate events, or if there is a breakdown, they are recovered soon. So alternatives should be there. Alternatives to access that service should be there, and when we rebuild it, it should be according to the new flood lines or whatever, so that we fix it according to that. So in this case, infrastructure is changing. We are changing the design or its access points so that it adapts to climate change.
So just one idea is just thinking of roads or highways that are navigating floodplains or rivers. And sometimes, as I mentioned earlier, though we talk about build better, but it can contribute to flooding and their deluge. So can we think of developing where we know, based on traditional local knowledge, some assessments, that water is flowing to that particular area more often than none? So can the development of wetlands, which would not deteriorate or affect the infrastructure quality and durability, can wetlands be an adaptation strategy when it comes to highways and roads where they are, knowing we have been hearing about wetlands as the carbon sinks together with forests. So do you think it as a wetland strategy? Similarly, for hydropower projects, will wetlands work? This could be considered as an adaptation strategy for hydropower preservation and to retain some water?
Honestly, I have not think. Yes, that can be done to preserve wetlands, and hydropowers can be used to we did it in our HRE2 program. We preserved, we planted new trees, and that is very much possible.
Yes, conscious of time, we are 12:20, but just one last comment on adaptations. We might not be able sometimes to change the infrastructure, but with one of the projects that KfW is working with PPF on is LASIP 2, And under that project, it's primarily is around service delivery, among other components. But in the current phase, we integrated tree plantation. So each community where an integrated area upgradation plan is implemented, they will plant up to 500 to 600 trees. People provide support for that. And so far, the plan is to have 40,000 trees in those localities, which I would say could be a good contribution. So we can't change the infrastructure, but I think we provide incentives for people to cover for the area that is paved with more tree cover.
So
This will be the last comment here.
yeah, in LASIP 2, we have done, we have sloped the road in a way that there's a storm water channel that diverts the water, and there's a harvesting pond next to it. So you see, access water, we have constructed the road in a way that the water flows into the harvesting pond.
You know, that's good. That's good. How do we channel infrastructure? I think it was very useful discussions where we brainstorm about ideas that can help us, and also to strategize how can we contribute more to not only infrastructure development, but also to the safety of our environment and the resources that are depleting. So I think now is the time that we move on to the next step, and I'll be passing on the baton again to Nishma to share with us the key findings or strategies that came out of the sessions. I would be happy to contribute to it as well. I did. Thank you, Nishma.
So I'll just more or less summarize what we saw on the boards there, and I think most of it was echoed during the discussions as well. And maybe Imran Saab can add to it afterwards if I miss any of the points. So I'm just going to go board by board. So the idea of the first board was to look into bottlenecks, obstacles, any hurdles that we feel are hindering our progress towards sustainable infrastructure, climate resilient infrastructure. So again, we saw more or less some 4 or 5 key themes emerge. So many of you highlighted weak coordination across ministries and line departments. So we know that the challenges are institutional. No matter how strong our technical solutions may be, we still need to work on our institutional dimensions as well. So unclear responsibilities across project cycles, fragile local institutions, all of these are contributing to failed projects per se. Then we also saw that a similar structure exists when it comes to funding. So when we talk about funding, it's like, I think there's a general idea that it's not limited, it's just not being structured very well. So we have upfront cost biases, we let's say perceive higher costs of resilient alternatives. We have integrity risks as well, which kind of discourage long-term investments or climate-informed investments as well. The same goes for the participation from our private sector. So let's just say our systems are biased towards a framework that rewards lowest initial cost rather than life cycle performance on the whole, as Aftab have also mentioned. So we need to work on those aspects. Then again, several inputs pointed to limited institutional capacity, lack of embedded climate integration and early planning. So the general idea is that we need to start as early as possible rather than look into these as an afterthought. And again, so also the idea that we need to build in safeguards within the structures and the policies as well. So they need to go hand in hand. And I guess a lot of you also indirectly pointed out towards changing behavioral and like behaviors. We need to more or less take it. It's still like climate risks are still not being treated as a core design condition. They're still treated as, you know, something that might happen, not something that will happen for sure, and we need to take care of it beforehand. So these are more or less the main challenges. Then moving towards looking towards what actually worked. So I was happy to see that within the map, there's an equal distribution of reds and greens. So even if there are things that are not working, there are still projects that are working, which is something that's encouraging. So again, here, I think a lot of you pointed towards looking into energy systems. So we need to, I think a lot of points discussed, pointed towards the ongoing solar boom and the expansion of solar and wind energy, just to, because they provide a certain flexibility that your grid structures don't when it comes to climate risks. Then again, we talked a lot about data-driven and risk-informed planning during the discussions as well, and a lot of you highlighted those aspects there as well. So we saw examples of GIS tools and structured risk assessments being used to identify climate risks early in the project cycles, and these let's say aspects led to better results when it came to the projects on the whole. This is actually important, as smarter siting and design decisions can significantly reduce exposure before construction even begins, which is basically the main point that we've been discussing here today again. I think a lot of points pointed towards post-disaster investments and insurances as well. So to again, as safeguard measures for the communities, not just the infrastructure itself, but the people who will face the consequences of a failed infrastructure project. Then I think the highlight of the discussion as well was community-based or community-led approaches. We need to engage the community as early as possible and through every step of the way. They need to be part of every decision, and the chances of success increase, as you said before as well, when they're involved. So I'm just gonna move to the third board. So here the idea was just to see what can be scaled and how. So again, the biggest point here was data-driven transformations. We need to start looking into upgrading our models, integrating them with AI to ensure better predictions, better outcomes when it comes to disaster risks and planning as well. Then we also looked into standardization and system integration. For example, in terms of documents, we need to make sure that all design parameters relevant to climate considerations or making them climate sensitive be included in core planning documents such as PC1. Doing that sort of institutionalizes it, and that is important when we want to scale any effort. Then we also looked into, I think, towards I think the most basic of any climate discussion, that resilience and mitigation must go hand in hand. So we need to look into our energy infrastructure as well as other options such as low carbon materials, emission reduction targets. And again, we need to make sure that we don't pollute as much. And at the same time, whatever we have, we need to protect it as best as we can. So this is more or less it from the boards. And I think it kind of covers everything we discussed during the discussion as well. But if everyone wants to add something, yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Nishma. I think you captured it well and very diligently. But also just quickly, just to sum it up, because there are several initiatives that different partners are doing and which we share here, whether it's community-based engagement or whether it's supported by the private sector. But I think in terms of strategies, we need to work together more, and to mainstream it is more emphasis on risk assessment and scenario planning. And it will be combining both infrastructure, public service delivery needs, as well as natural conservation. And here, different aspects can support well, whether it's AI or the new technology or tools that are available. And it's more just to get a future orientation rather than keep thinking about what happened last year. The second aspect is nature-based solutions or nature-assisted solutions, because it will help us align both sides together, bring them together in a more coherently, more in complementary manner, rather than being in clash with each other, which has been the case in many instances. And WWF and KfW and also PPF shared several examples of that. The third aspect is, or a strategy, is to have the government on board, not only in terms of capacity, but also to help them provide more conducive policy space, where not only the government, but the private sector as well as people can contribute to that direction. And the important aspect is, how do we channel private sector or venture capital into this whole dynamics of not only infrastructure development, but nature conservation. And I think that's a clear pathway for how can we integrate climate into infrastructure planning and development. But thank you again for your contribution to this whole discussions. We'll further consolidate these discussion points, these different aspects, and might think of coming up with a write-up based on that. But now, as we have honor with the presence of Dr. Miriam, so I would request her to make a statement and conclude the session with her remarks. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks again. Thank you, Imran. I feel you almost took away, or you almost did a perfect concluding remarks just now. So I don't want to repeat that, but I'm very happy I was able to be here, at least for a short while. I feel the discussions you heard were really pertinent to the topic at hand. I want to take the opportunity to thank again SDPI for setting up this event together with German Corporation. I don't need to repeat to you how much Pakistan is affected by climate change. You know that better than I do. And we don't need to look back to 2022. We can just look back to 2025 and we see how many lives have lost and infrastructure has been damaged. So I think we don't need to discuss the question whether there is a need for sustainable infrastructure in Pakistan. It's just the question how to do it best. And I think in a way being here today, it's also a bit like preaching to the believers. I think you all came together with the knowledge that there is a necessity to think about better ways of this kind of sustainable infrastructure investment in Pakistan. And I think we all share the understanding that this must be considered throughout each project's life cycle. We've heard, I think, I have a lot of messages for policymakers and for NGOs and development partners and civil society, but I think, they have been mostly already mentioned. I want to just quickly again reemphasize the German development perspective, or German government's perspective, and then maybe highlight these few areas that I think we all agree on that we need stronger alignment. So climate risk management is a central component for Germany's international climate policy. And from the perspective of the German government, climate resilience is not an add-on or something optional. It is a core requirement for sustainable development. Our approach of comprehensive risk management combines strategies and measures that reduce the risk of climate-related damages, as well as managing losses and damages better. So on the one hand, this includes identifying risks early on to be able to respond quickly to impending losses and damages. And infrastructure that is planned without climate and disaster risk consideration creates future fiscal, social, human costs. So we heard already about what to do with infrastructure, you know, maybe once you have it in place, you need to think about ways of retrofitting it. But what is clear when you build and create new infrastructure, these considerations need to be essential and part and parcel of the whole process in order to avoid damages both on the fiscal and the human side. So Germany's development cooperation in Pakistan places strong emphasis on integrating climate risk at the earliest stages of planning and appraisal, strengthening institutional mandates and technical systems. I mean, we've also heard about certain challenges in coordinating between ministries, between different actors, and linking policy ambition with implementation tools. This approach supports Pakistan's national commitments and long-term development objectives. So actually, with a view to policymakers, I think I can only re-emphasize that we encourage climate screening at PC1 and concept stage, not after approval. Strong coordination between climate, disaster risk, infrastructure, and finance institutions, and clear responsibilities at federal and provincial levels to ensure consistency and accountability. I think with view to ourselves as development partners, we also have to do some homework, you know. We have to make sure that we better align our methodologies and share our knowledge better when we're planning different projects, that we think more about joint approaches that support government systems rather than parallel processes. And when it comes to financing models, that we prioritize also long-term resilience and risk reduction. I think lastly, when it comes to our partners with this approach, we see civil society, the private sector was mentioned, and academia as strong partners that all need to and can bring strong things to the table. I think especially, so we've heard about the role of local communities, you know, that goes beyond just local government, but also communities as a whole. But we've also heard about the private sector needing to step in or find a place in this kind of landscape. I think this is not just true for Pakistan, this is true for, you know, challenges we have in Germany everywhere. We can't do it just as policymakers. We need to get everyone on board. And so on this, I would like to conclude and thank you all. We know that Pakistan as a global shield pathfinder is leading the way in development, sovereign risk financing and protecting its critical infrastructure. And we as Germany stand with a strong commitment behind Pakistan as our partner. Thank you.
Thank you, Miriam. I think that was a good sum up as well, giving us an overview of Germany's engagement and also expectations when it comes to the development cooperations. But just to sum up the sessions, I'll track you back again to my initial statement, which was expectations from the sessions. And I said, I'll reiterate, is that we expected, and I said, we realized that to turn your experiences into stories and your stories into resilience narrative. And that we are confident that we got that, and that because your ideas could become pathways for sustainable infrastructure development amid the shape-shifting climate change anomalies and calamities. So I think we are there. We came up with a plan. We came up with some strategies that can help us all map out risk better and plan projects in a manner that is not affect climate change or can contribute to climate change, but also can address public service delivery challenges as well. So thank you for your contributions. I think now is the time to have a group photo, which could become a memento for everyone of the sessions. And as a reminder that we all came together and put our heads together on such a complex issue, which can't be addressed in one session. So thank you very much again, and look forward to see you more.
Hello.
ठीक है, बस मुझे
Amin.